Hunter x Hunter, Hunter x Hunter, however you want to pronounce it. Many people say different things. But I'm gonna tell you why it is not the flawless masterpiece that everyone always hypes it up to be. And it's crazy to me that people will just tend to ignore some of the blatant issues with the series as a whole. What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Ant Man back with another video. And if you could, please subscribe, like, and comment and tell me what you think of the video. Alright, when I start off the video letting you know that it's not a flawless masterpiece, I get that some people's criticism is nothing is flawless. There's flaws in everything. Nothing is perfect. You know, only God, if you're religious or whatever you believe in, is perfect. But when I say that, I just mean that people hold it to a standard that it's just the upper echelon. And I get it. It's not like a end all be all type of scale for everybody out in the world, but a huge majority of the fan base or anime fan base tends to lean towards saying Hunter x Hunter is just like upper echelon. There's almost no flaws with it. XYZ, the whole 9 yards. And some of the reasons why I don't agree with it is kind of simple, and it's kind of hard that some people miss on it. And maybe, more avid researchers can break it down as to why they feel that my opinion might be wrong. I've seen other people's analysis of the series, and while I do agree that the series itself is a very great series, but it is definitely overrated. And so we're gonna get into some of the niches I have with it. So to get further into it, so the main characters of Gon, Killua, Kurapika, and Leorio. Now, when they're first introduced, these are supposed to be our main four protagonists. Quickly, after about 2 arcs, they split off, and Gon and Killua is by themselves. Kurapika is kind of still with them with the whole, Spiders, York New stuff, but he's kind of distanced himself. And Leorio is just way out of the picture, not to show up towards the chairman election arc. Granted, I do like when when series tend to break up their main cast and let their own main cast have their own specific arc to shine and be like somewhat of the focal point. Like obviously Gon and Killua pretty much cover every arc except the York New. They're there in the York New, but they take a back seat to everything. So Kurapika, because that's his storyline. And then the chairman election arc, Killua is present, and Gon is obviously still a plot point because of him being in the hospital, but it's still Leorio that takes the stage out of that, and Kurapika is nowhere to be found. And obviously, if you're caught up with the manga, obviously right now it's more Kurapika, and it's just Kurapika at this point. So I do like that. However, I don't feel like it's the best thing to do is introduce these characters and then branch them off, because you quickly start to like lean towards who you prefer, who's like actually like you view as the actual main characters, as opposed to who's actually just like supporting cast. I know on my first watch through, I'm sitting here watching this, and Kurapika and Leorio definitely feel like supporting characters. A lot of like casual viewers will consider them both casual supporting characters, and that's one issue that I have with it. It's not a major issue, but I just don't like when people that are supposed to be the main cast feel like supporting cast. It's kind of like how Sakura in Naruto is. Like Sakura is highlighted as being a part of Naruto and Sasuke, but she's quickly brushed off as a supporting character in most of the series. But every now and then we're thrown in our face that we're supposed to care that she's like a main character, like we're like blah blah blah. But I feel like Hunter x Hunter just did not capture that well for me. And some people might not have an issue with it, but that was one of the issues that I had with it. Now, as far as arcs go and the ones that I have issues with and ones that I don't, I'm gonna get into that. So obviously, to start off, the Hunter exam and the some people don't consider it an actual arc because of how brief it is, but the Zoldyck family arc, which is basically where Gon goes to not rescue, but bring Killua back after he finds out what happened at the end of the exams. Those two I have no issues with, and I really like the Zoldyck family arc because it gives you more backstory into, you get more of a look into Killua, because obviously Killua is like a very mysterious character at the start of the series, and you just want to know why this character can, like, obviously we know the badass scene where he takes dude's heart and he's just like casual with it, and you want to know what type of person, what type of kid is just so casually doing that. And obviously you get to see the Zoldyck family arc and you kind of understand, like, oh, okay, this is why this guy's pretty much fucked up, you know. And the first arc I have an issue with is what a lot of people are gonna fucking be mad at, and I've debated people countless times about it. And it's Heaven's Arena's arc, because yes, it is great because it's like it does a training arc well and informs the reader very well on what's happening. But I feel like Nen itself is overhyped way too much because of how much wiggle room, I guess you can say it's an issue with it, but it's also genius in the same time, is that Nen has so much wiggle room to be able to be whatever it wants to be, but then be specifically what it has to be, what it's meant to be. So, and then the whole issue with Hisoka's, his Nen aura is literally just keeping them from going past the hallway. It seemed kind of, you get what the reason for it is obviously like he wants them to learn, but it's just like, it was really cheesy to me that he's just sitting at the end of the hallway and finally these guys are able to, you know, they're Nen geniuses, as the teacher put it, but that he can just like hold them in a hallway and not pass the hallway just because he thinks they're not ready yet. It was kind of cheesy. Obviously, it could have been implemented better. And then obviously at the end, at the climax, when they finally, you know, grasp the Nen concept, and then they fight the villains, they fight the people in the tournament, I feel like they missed the mark. And then obviously going fighting Hisoka, they missed the mark of an actual like tournament style, I feel like. And obviously some people like might not be a fan of tournament arcs. I do feel like the tournament arcs in Battle Shonen are usually good, especially considering this is Togashi, the one that wrote the Dark Tournament and then the Demon World Tournament, which are two tournaments that people love. The Dark Tournament being absolutely probably the best, in my opinion. It is the best tournament arc in anime history. So that the fact that we didn't really get that, and then in later arcs, like the Heaven's Arena is referenced with like obviously Hisoka and Chrollo fight there, but it's just like I feel like we really missed that mark as to getting some type of like tournament arc. And I get it, Togashi probably has been there, done that. He doesn't want to go through that whole concept again. So, but those are just like two minor issues I have with the arcs, with that arc specifically. Now the next one, the York New arc. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay this out there. It is my favorite arc of this entire series. I'm not going to really touch too much on manga arcs, so I'm not, because they're obviously incomplete. So I'm not gonna like review of like put that in my category of like if it's my favorite or if it's not. I will say that the Dark Continent arc has the potential to be the best arc, but York New arc is, for as far as completed arcs goes, that is my favorite. But even it has flaws. One of those flaws being basically, actually the biggest flaw of it is actually the very ending. We go from such a dark, heavy tone, you know, they're playing the Requiem for their fallen comrade, and at the end, it all just drops. The climax just drops, you know. Chrollo fakes his death because he paid off the Zoldyck family, and there was a whole scheme behind that. And then everything was just dropped. So, and I feel like that was just, it killed the vibe for me. because I love the tone that the York New arc had from start to finish. Well, start to right before the finish, and it's just like you had that under dark tone, and when you finally get to like towards the end, when you're like, oh, this is about to be really good. We're about to see something really nice, and then boom, we're back at just watching a fucking exhibit. They run in, Gon and Killua run into the rest of the spiders, and the spiders like do like a little. It's not really a comedic scene, but it's kind of like a, hey you. It's like a Scooby Doo. I caught you. Like look at you type of deal. It felt really corny to me because we didn't get a real climax to it, and then things just shift straight over to Greed Island. And Greed Island, by far the worst arc of the entire series. And I know people either might not know what I'm talking about, or they do, and they might not definitely agree with it. But Greed Island, and I did check this, is Greed Island definitely just gave off vibes of, if you watch Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Filler arc where they went to a virtual world, and it was basically just like how Greed Island set up, how the monsters are real, and they could do certain abilities that they wouldn't be able to do in the normal world. And it was just like, because obviously it was a game. Greed Island was a game, and I do like the creativity to try to do something like this, but I didn't like it because I didn't like it in Yu-Gi-Oh! I didn't like it in Greed Island. So I just felt like there was really no tension. There was really no point about it. I get why it happened, because Gon was trying to find Jing, or Ging, however you want to say it. But it just it felt so out of place. It felt like Togashi was just trying something new, just trying to get somebody's attention, trying to be like creative. And points for being creative, but it just misses its mark because at the end of the day, and then obviously the Unabomber whole thing, the villain itself, he was never like a villain. He was never really felt like a threat. You know, before that, Crollo felt like a threat. Hisoka felt like a threat. It's just like, it didn't do it for me. And I obviously, like I keep reiterating, I did not like the whole game structure of the whole island. The volleyball match was cool, but it still wasn't something. It was something I could have did without. That whole arc I could have did without. Obviously, it brings the revelation at the end where Gon eventually meets back up with Kite, and that leads me into the most overhyped arc, in my opinion, for Hunter x Hunter, and probably anime because of how much hype this arc gets. And before you tell me, oh yeah, you don't know about Miriam and you don't understand the parallels between Miriam and Gon, one becoming a monster, one becoming more human. I get all that, and I'm gonna briefly touch on it. Right. So at the beginning, we're so worried about these. Now, before I get into issues, the nice things about Chimera Ant arc is it was very brutal. And me personally, in my opinion, I like that stuff. I like when the anime is not afraid to get brutal or gruesome. And it got off rip. You know, where we see characters that we met back in the Hunter exam, they just get eaten. They get gone. They get got. So seeing that is just like, all right, cool. So we about to get into some real stuff. You know what I'm saying? But quickly, once we get introduced to Miriam, the king, and his royal guard, everything becomes so drawn out. So drawn out. And I get it. That's like that is one of the main accepted things about this arc, is that it does get drawn out. Especially in the anime, it gets drawn out so long. But I don't feel like just because people accept that it's drawn out that it's something we just kind of gloss over, because like that's a big issue. Like One Piece is killed for it. Naruto has been killed for it before. It's just like when you're dragging arcs out unnecessarily, it's just like it can kill the whole mood, kill the whole vibe of the show. And especially like when you're on the stairway with Yuppie, and that shit is like just taking fucking like 10 episodes damn near for them just to move off the damn stairway. Like, I get it. You're trying to, either at the time they were trying to create dramatic tension, or they were trying to make sure the manga had time. I don't know exactly when these chapters were coming out, because I came in Hunter x Hunter later, so I can't speak to how the anime compared to the manga is, because obviously that's like one of the main reasons why One Piece drags out some of the things that it does, is because it doesn't want to catch up to the manga, because it's week to week, and then the manga's week to week, and they're pretty close in chapter compared to episode. So I get that. So I don't know if that was the case back then, but yeah, that was a big issue. I did like how each of the royal guards had their own, like, you know, motives, and how they interacted with humans. Yuppie being the most like authentic, you know, because he felt more human out of all of them, and it's just like, I don't know, you found yourself pretty much like despising the other two, and Yuppie you were kind of like feeling for, and that's just me. Maybe somebody felt something for one of the other two. I didn't. But the other issue is, and I get it, this is an anime only issue with the kite stuff. Obviously, in the manga, Kite is introduced in chapter 1, and you kind of get that touchy, like you understand why Gon is acting the way he does about Kite's death. But even if you just take the anime itself, or the manga and the anime itself, it still doesn't justify the outrage that Gon had. At least in my opinion. And I get it. The argument is that he's a kid. And, you know, he just seen somebody that, because he didn't have Jin growing up, he didn't have him to see as a father figure. So he latched on to him at a young age. And granted, I get it, that can ruin him. But at the same time, I don't feel like it was portrayed enough to us that he was that father figure. But I definitely feel like it needed to be expanded upon more for us to actually like care, or for it to understand as to why he's going as crazy as he did. Because you could understand him to go this crazy for like Killua, you know, but I didn't really get it. And then this is like, obviously the other issue is just like the contracts. And I could have touched upon it in York New, but York New is where it's really introduced, because Kurapika has his contract for the spiders, you know. But with contracts and Nen, this is why I told you it's a genius thing. Nen is genius, but it's also kind of like bullshit, because contracts basically allow the people to do whatever. And I get it. I get the whole risk reward type deal. Like the more steep the contract, the bigger the risk. I get it, but you don't really actually see that, because ta-da, you know, we got the fucking one wish genie in the bottle girl, but it still doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, he was able to do that, make that contract. We didn't see, and this is the issue, it's like we don't see the contract on screen or on panel. We don't see it. We're just told it in the aftermath, not by him, but by Killua guessing that he made a contract. I feel like that type of scene, we should have seen some type of internal monologue. And I get it. He has his outburst of rage, saying like, I don't care, and I'll use everything and stuff like that. I just don't feel, I feel like in that scene we could have seen more of an internal dialogue of him talking to himself, or, you know, like thinking it out or something, because like at the end of the day, I never liked the way contracts are handled, because even though Kurapika's stuff made sense, we don't see him actually make the contract, you know. We don't get to see, like, it would have been cool like if in Full Metal Alchemist, you know, when he's talking the truth, it could have been like one of those type of things, like it was a deal with it, truth, like stuff like that. But it wasn't that. It was just was like, you close your fucking eyes, wake up, and boom, you have a contract for whatever you put it on. But and it just was like such a freaking weird event. Like it was cool. It was a cool scene. Don't get me wrong, but it still was very poorly handled in my opinion. And the Miriam stuff. So I get it. People love Miriam and his character arc. But I will go on record saying Miriam is like the not even the first or the second best character from Togashi's made. He's probably a solid third. But the first is Sensui and the second is Toguro. But Sensui, way better character. And Toguro, it's debatable better character. But the Miriam stuff, it was very beautiful and poetic that he found human nature with Komui playing basically chess, but you know, their version of chess. And I get it that it was really poetic to see that, how he was a monster. He started off a monster and then slowly the interactions caused him to become more human-like, and then his interactions with the ants slowly turned him into a monster. And it's very poetic. It really is. But it's definitely overhyped because we've seen this with Togashi's work. Togashi does this. And I think it's because Yu Yu Hakusho is like it's an older anime, and Hunter x Hunter is older as well, but Hunter x Hunter did get a remake in 2010. So it's a lot more fresher in people's minds. Better, I wouldn't say better graphics, I'm a fan of the older graphics, but still, they got to see this recently, more recent, and so it's in their minds more fresh. But that's just like a trope that Togashi does, where the whole you're kind of blurring the lines between who's actually a human, who's actually a monster, who's in the morally gray. And I just feel like it wasn't that big of a deal to me, that impressive to me, because I have seen this before with Togashi's work. So, and then the chairman election arc, I didn't really have an issue with. Obviously, the big issue is fucking the Make-A-Wish Foundation character they introduced, which I get it, they have there's repercussions for it, but still, I do feel like Togashi placed her in there for the coming arcs, for obviously like Dark Session arc or Dark Continent arc and the Session arc, because obviously she comes from the Dark Continent, or what she is comes from Dark Continent arc. So I get why he was put in, but Save and Gone was bullshit, and people will say what they want to say. People can feel how they want to feel about it. My opinion was it was not needed. It should have been a consequence that Gon should have lost it. And at the end of the day, Jing does hint that Gon can still get his Nen back, and obviously we haven't seen that yet. But if Gon does get his Nen back, then it truly was just a wasted plot line, in my opinion. And it might teach the character something, but at the end of the day, it was all for naught if he just gets everything back. But at the end of the day, this is just my thoughts and opinions on the series overall. If you guys and want me to go more in depth and actually like break down like in arc by arc issues and positives, because I do, like in this video, I did provide positive stuff that I did like about certain arcs and certain characters. But if you want me to do that more in depth, where you have questions and you want to, critique the video in the comments, please smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment, and let me know what you think. All right, y'all, have a good time. Peace.